In this video, you learn how to play better rhythm guitar. Now, rhythm guitar is what you do most of the time, even if you consider yourself to be a lead guitar player, so it makes sense to work on it. However, most people really lack in this area of guitar playing, not being able to do too much more than basic strumming patterns with open chords and bar chords. Hi, this is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net, and in this video I sit down with songwriting mastery coach Diana de Cabarrus to discuss and demonstrate ways to play better rhythm guitar parts. We will cover various rhythm guitar skills and techniques, including developing contrasting guitar parts through the use of dynamics. We'll also look at how to create rhythm density. This is all about how many notes you're playing and how you are playing those notes. Also show you how to integrate other instruments into your rhythm guitar playing to add interest. So for example, bringing in a bass line and integrating that into your chord progression, or adding percussive elements to your strumming to emulate the drums. We'll also use actual songs to demonstrate these concepts so that you can really understand them and show you ways to practice this stuff that extends beyond the obvious. So let's get straight to it. When arranging a song, or when you think about a song for a solo performance where it's just going to be you and let's say no one else, so you're singing and you're playing, what are some of the techniques and the concepts to keep in mind?
Essentially, the big idea that I think is very helpful, that's like the granddaddy of all the other ideas, is contrast and continuity. If there's not enough contrast, it's going to become boring. If you hear the same strumming pattern for 8 songs in a row, it's going to become boring. So we need enough contrast to keep us interested. We need enough continuity for us to not get confused. We need to be able to follow the thread. So if there's too much contrast, if someone's telling you about a film they saw and then the next sentence they're telling you about a trip they took to the Grand Canyon 3 years ago, you can't follow it. It sort of becomes incoherent. And it's the same when people are trying to follow a piece of music. We need enough to kind of cling on to, but enough variation and development to keep it interesting. So you can contrast things like how many notes we're hearing at once. Are we hearing one note at a time? Are we hearing 2 notes at a time? Are we hearing all 6 strings at once? So there's a big difference between and those are ways that of contrasting how many notes we're hearing at the same time. Could even just be. So there's how many notes we're hearing at once. There is how many notes we are hearing in the same stretch of time. So we might be hearing fewer notes or a greater number of notes. The technical term for that would be rhythmic density. There would be whether we're hearing low notes or high notes. So we might be hearing low pitches down here. Or we might be hearing high pitches up there. We might be able to combine them. We might want to contrast how the notes are moving. Are they traveling upwards? So we could have we were sort of hearing the higher note last. Maybe we're going to have them coming down. So you could very easily have one picking pattern where you went in one direction and then you went the other direction. And there's enough continuity, we're on the same chord, that we're gonna be able to follow what's happening, but there's a nice bit of contrast there.
I think the number one thing is dynamics. Dynamics will be one of those things that make you sound pro. It's the difference between a really professional sort of sound versus a bit of an amateur sound is dynamics. Dynamics are not necessarily really that hard to develop. It's just a matter of being aware of them. You're strumming a chord, you can strum very loud, or you can strum very softly, or everything in between. Different songs will have a different dynamic range, but you as a musician want to have a large dynamic range. And then depending on what you're doing, you'll work within that range. So sometimes you might play a song and you hit kind of the bookends of your range. You play very softly at parts in the song and other parts you play very loud. It's not to say you've got to do that. That'd be a bit overkill probably if you did that every time. But it depends on the situation. And I think when you play on your own, there's just the one instrument, you're probably going to stretch those dynamics a bit more to compensate for the lack of drums, bass, second guitar, whatever it might be, keys, etc. And dynamics within like a single bar, where you can be pretty sort of, every strum is not equal there. Some strums I'm, accenting, bringing out, playing a bit louder. Other strums in between are softer. But then there's dynamics that's more on a micro level. Dynamics on a macro level would be the whole song. Across the song, do you have a nice dynamic sort of balance? Or are you playing the same level from start to finish, which wouldn't be good either. Perhaps we'll give a few examples here.
Let's say I'm at a point in my technique where I can play one fingerstyle pattern and one strumming pattern. I can contrast those to good effect. Then as my technique expands a bit, I can do more stuff with that. So maybe I'm going to go. The simple thing that you can use at any level is that I also delayed the point where I set up an expectation of how long each chord was going to last for. And then the third time we heard it round, the third time we hear it, I delayed going back to the chord. So that was like much longer on that one chord than we'd had before. And so, that's something, you don't have to do anything fancy while you're delaying the chord. You could. So that's an example of a technique you can start using regardless of how many fingerstyle patterns you have available right now or how many picking techniques you have available right now.
An example I would offer up here perhaps is Horse with No Name. It's 2 chords. And if you were playing that, and very simple chords, right? And it's basically one bar per chord. Now, if you're playing that song on your own, you could just sit. You could do that for 4 minutes and, it's okay. But if I did play that song where it's just one guitar, I know that there's a bass line that comes in that's playing basically like an E, F sharp, and D. E, F sharp, D. So I would want to incorporate that into my chord progression just so that I've got some movement and then a point of contrast. So, for example, if I'm playing those chords, I got my E, I got my F sharp, D, E, F sharp, D. So I want to sort of target that bass line, so I can have it sort of pop out a little bit from my chord progression. So I might be sort of. And then if I was into the chorus or something, I might strum it out more, a bit more sort of a rhythmic strum than that. And the other thing would be to listen for other instruments. Get used to listening to songs and listening for other instruments in the song, because they will give you ideas that you could bring into your arrangements. It trains your ears to isolate parts, and then in this context, you can take some of those ideas and incorporate them into yours. For example, Dancing in the Dark, Bruce Springsteen has a little line that goes something like, I've played that song before, and I'm not necessarily trying to get that perfectly played within my G chord, which is the backing. I'm just trying to get elements of it in there. So I might go. Right, so I still want to keep the groove, but I want to get that melody component, and then I can strum more, and you know, play that part where it comes in the song. And something like that can just add another dimension to your song. And then, you know, you might not do it later on or whatever it might be. But, you know, it's just getting it in with the strumming, not trying to make it too pretty or too precise, because you've got to keep that groove going. That's number one with that type of playing.
One thing which another area of playing guitar solo that's sometimes underexplored by people who are singing at the same time is playing single note lines while you're singing. So it seems like it would be really hard to do that, but it's not really any harder than playing chords. It's just a bit different. Blowing down these city roads, making notes and breaking codes, thinking of my bones, what's within their scaffolding. Compass madly spins, it's not tied to gravity. Broken glass cuts the earth, a serrated galaxy. Being I can touch a nerve, truth's not just to do with words. We all need to be seen, feral only machines. So my alternative there, if I hadn't had some riffs that I could play, would have just been to play the same, you know, the same chords all the way around. That would have got really boring. Well, I would have got bored doing it.
If you like this video, then you'll love this Acoustic Rhythm Guitar Techniques mini course. In this course, you learn 5 ways to sound much better as a rhythm guitarist, including strumming techniques, chordal picking, rhythm riffs and fills, as well as cool sounding chords and embellishments. Over the course of 5 days, you will not only be trained in depth on each of these areas of your guitar playing, but also how to put it all together to create great sounding music. So click the link in the description below this video to gain access to the Acoustic Rhythm Guitar Techniques mini course. Let me know in the comments section what acoustic guitar topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. I read all comments. I love to hear what you have to say, so don't be shy, drop me a line. If you like this video, then hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the all important notification bell button so YouTube will tell you when I've released a new video. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate your time, and I also will look forward to seeing you in the next video.